Very good morning. My name is Malcolm Grahamwood, and I'm here at Core Finance for my CEO interview. Today, my guest is Andrew Benitz, CEO of Jersey Oil and Gas. Welcome back, Andrew.
Morning, Malcolm.
Lovely to see you again.
To see you again.
And you.
Didn't expect we'd be drilling when we decided to have this interview.
I have to say, you've taken one of my questions already, but let's get that out of the way. This came up a little sooner than you expected, having been a bit later than you expected.
Well, that's right. But the UK campaign that was before us at Equinor operating went quickly and according to plan. So we're now on location with Verbier and spudded as of yesterday.
Good stuff. Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. It's a while since you were in here last, but a lot of things have happened, and you've been incredibly busy. But I'd still like you to just give us a short overview of Jersey Oil and Gas, and then we'll dig deeper into Verbier and the drilling and so on after that, if that's okay.
Well, we're a UK North Sea focused E&P company, and our core asset is our Verbier license, in which we've got the Verbier oil discovery, which we announced in October 2017.
Okay, right, let's talk about Verbier, because obviously it's the most, really is the whole thing about the company. Now, you've just spotted, we just ascertained that, and we need to know what's at stake here. You announced that now that the well has spudded, you're looking to define or refine the range that you gave before from the well that you've got drilling now, the appraisal. So tell us what's the plan, what you'd like to do, and assuming you don't want a heart attack like the last time when you had to do a sidetrack. Yeah,
that's right. Well, we announced the Verbier oil discovery in October 2017. And at the time, initial operator estimates were between 25 million barrels and 130 million barrels of recoverable oil. The 25 million barrels being the minimum proven volume around the well bore of the discovery well. So what we're doing with this now upcoming appraisal program is to try and refine that range. And what we're drilling right now is the first of the appraisal wells. So the good news is that we've got a minimum discovery, but what we'd like to do is try and find more sands to the north and be able to prove up a higher volume. So the real question is, are we in the low to mid case, or are we in the mid case to higher?
So assuming it's an appraisal well, it's unlikely to be dry. How far away from the original exploration well is it? Is it a long way?
It's a couple of kilometres to the northwest. It's what I might describe as a relatively conservative first appraisal well to try and prove up more volumes.
So you talk about first appraisal well. That presumably means that you've got a number of appraisal wells planned here on this particular prospect. We'll come back to the other prospects later.
I suppose it depends on the outcome of this first appraisal well, but yes, in order to fully define the resource in Verbier, we would need to drill more appraisal wells. And that's something that we could be planning for as early as next year. One of the other things that we did when all of last year was planning and preparing for this event. But a new 3D seismic survey that we acquired in April last year is going to be delivered, and the result of that we can incorporate into this well result and start planning further appraisal. But there's equally more exploration on the license as well.
Good. I'll come back to the seismic in a minute, if I may. You talk about how it would affect the high and low case for that you've got already. Are you talking about, you said low to medium to high? Does that mean you'll end up having a narrower range, or could you have
It's likely to be narrower, but we don't fully yet know what the definition of the prospect is, and ultimately you've got to drill wells to determine that. So it's work in progress. We know we've got a minimum volume there.
Yeah.
It's a question of how far-reaching is this prospect.
So it goes on the minimum volume. The development goes on the minimum volume in the North Sea.
So from our perspective, we believe that 25 million barrels is commercially viable in this part of the central North Sea, whether it's through tieback to existing infrastructure. But there's an opportunity and the likelihood of an area-wide develevent. And a new hub, and that's something that I'll come on to in later.
And we'll talk about that 3D because, I was one of the people who picked out last year that you were doing a huge amount of 3D seismic, which got delivered to you, just before Christmas, was it? Or
so I think.
And so how's that progressing? You've had the data in.
Yeah, I think that demonstrates perhaps the longer-term thinking of the joint venture partnership. Where we made that decision after the initial discovery to acquire a brand new 3D seismic survey set. We already had 3D over the license, in fact 3 data sets, but this gives us another one with state-of-the-art modern technology, 2018 survey that has been specifically optimized to try and better image the Upper Jurassic Reservoir where we made our discovery. And the scale of the survey was beyond just our existing license, and I think that helps demonstrate our thinking on an area-wide basis, and how to bring this together into hopefully a successful development.
Good. I'd like to come back to that in a minute because I think we'll talk about the 31st round and so on. But in terms of that data. You're setting it at the moment, or is it going through the process? Because these things can take time, can't
absolutely. The acquisition was completed in June last year, and we received a fast-track data set in December. Equinor, our partner as operator, are obviously doing an initial interpretation of that fast-track data set. But equally so, Jersey Oil and Gas is also doing our own interpretation because we think it's incredibly important to do our own technical work. So we've had delivery of that initial data set. We have a geoscientist on board in-house that is currently interpreting that, and it's not for the purposes of this current appraisal program, but it's actually for the planning of next steps, and it's also better defining and imaging some of the additional prospectivity on the license. And in addition to Verbier, we've got a very exciting exploration prospect called Cortina.
Yeah. Well, I was going to come to that next actually, because you have Cortina and Maribel as well. I seem to remember from the old days. Yeah. Where do these two, or where does Cortina come into the process?
So our original geoscientists had the love for skiing, and so named all these ski resorts, which I fully endorse because I love skiing myself. But Verbier was the first discovery. Cortina is a few kilometres to the east. A similar Upper Jurassic flank prospect with sands depositing off a high, and that has the potential to be as big or even bigger than Verbier, so that's really exciting. Maribel's a bit earlier stage, it's a lead, but there is additional prospectivity on the licence that we are identifying, and I think that's quite exciting for future planning.
And these are all things that have been in the new 3D seismic?
Yes, and a combination of all the work, data that we've got available. And yes, we'll get the final process data set at the end of Q2, and that will help for planning for future activity.
So what's the timeline? We know that the timeline at the moment is drilling the appraisal well on Verbier, and you've said that you would expect there to be at least one, if not several, wells on Verbier. Would you then go and drill Cortina, or could you do it at the same time with the? What's the timescale?
So no program has been set in stone for 2020, but arguably with a good result on Verbier, there's possibility of further appraisal drilling on Verbier, and also exploration on Cortina, I'd say, is the first opportunity outside of Verbier. So could those be done together or in sequence? Arguably, yes.
Yeah,
that's a possibility.
And Equinor, couldn't get a better operator.
Yeah.
They're presumably keen to carry on
Well,
providing
we've been working very closely together ever since they came onto the license in October 2016, and we've been very fortunate to have a dedicated, very serious operator. It's technically competent, but also one of the world-class developers of offshore projects. So, I couldn't be happier. They're a very good quality company to be in partnership with.
Yeah.
And for that matter, also Siaco, who are our other joint venture partner, subsidiary of Itochu, a major Japanese conglomerate. But again, we've worked as a tripartite very well together over the last few years.
So, we've looked at one or two of the prospects. We know that the 31st supplementary license round is in process at the moment.
Yeah.
And the word is that there are licenses around Verbia or in the Buchan area that you might be interested in. Is that right? Are you planning to apply for stuff there, or
I'm not going to.
Can't keep everything a secret.
I'm not going to comment on whether we're applying or what our strategy might be around that. But suffice to say, you can go onto the government website. You can see what the 31st supplementary licensing round is, and it's been marketed as the Greater Buchan area. And the OGA refer to it as having potentially up to 300 million barrels of recoverable oil in this area. And if you look at the blocks that are available and up for licensing, the P2170 license, which we own, is slap bang in the middle. So of course it's on our radar. And I think what it demonstrates is that the government is looking for industry parties that are evaluating this on an area-wide scale. And that fits quite well into our thinking of how to bring this into a new hub development. And that can only be of benefit to Verbia itself. Whatever the outcome of Verbia.
Before I go on to the financing bit of it, but this is probably partly to do with it. In the past, you've always said you wanted to buy some production or you wanted to buy something else. Now, when Verbia came in, the idea of buying the production went away a bit because you had calls on your money and you had lots of things. Are you still looking to buy production, or was that stayed on hold, or are you thinking about something outside the North Sea? Or
So one of the good things that we did is that immediately after our discovery, we did do an equity raise. We raised just under £24 million, and that fully funds us through this upcoming appraisal programme. It funded the 3D survey last year. It also helps us fund for future activity on the licence, which may include the exploration drilling of, say, Cortina. So we're in a good funded position, but yes, our focus has been very much on this Verbia area. We haven't dropped the baton with respect to looking at other M&A opportunities. We've consciously and actively been evaluating and bidding on primarily production assets. And last year, I'm not afraid to say that we got outbid on quite a number. That's one of the courses of looking for acquisition opportunities. But we've remained very disciplined. And I think you're right, we are sensitive to equity dilution because we see considerable upside potential in this area that we already own. And can we grow concentrically from it? Possibly. And so, yes, we're still interested in M&A. We'll carry on looking at opportunities, and if one fits the bill, for example, some good cash flow in production that helps fund the next stages of development on Verbia and other assets, then we'll look very seriously at it. But we will remain disciplined in our approach to finance, into valuations.
Well, that's just. I'd like to dig a little deeper on the finance front. You said you raised the money. It's enough to pay your share of the Verbia appraisal, and you've paid for the 3D, your share of the 3D, presumably. Where does it, in detail, leave you? And you can run all the way through to next spring. a year's time, or would you need to? Obviously, I know how dependent it is on Verbier, really.
It's certainly through to the end of this year. Our expected capex, for total capex, is £7 to £10 million. As of interims last year, we had 22 in the bank.
Yeah.
So you can quickly work out what our expected cash flow is towards the end of this year. As we go into next year, it depends very much on what drilling activity we pursue.
Yeah.
But yes, conceivably, it can last us well into next year. Beyond that, obviously, there will be capital requirements, but there are multiple ways to solve that problem.
But I presume it would be a very short answer to the question. You wouldn't want him to sell down any of Verbier at this stage.
No,
it's been
no,
such
certainly
18% is a nice,
no, it's
nice, very big stake.
It's a material percentage into potentially a world-class asset.
Yeah. Before I ask about the team, coming towards the end of it, I find that the value that is put on Jersey Oil and Gas shares is, I often find this, and CEOs often say to me, the shares have had a bit of a run anyway. Last time I looked, they're about 235p, which puts them on a market cap of just under £50 million. Now, if you talked about even the bottom end of that range for Verbier, going for say 25 million barrels, and it was firmed up at the bottom end a bit higher, surely that makes the potential value of Jersey Oil and Gas be significantly higher than the market cap at the moment.
I personally believe that the share price is factoring in the minimum discovered volumes already, and not much more. If you think about, we've run MPV 10 analysis on a basic development of that minimum volume, and based on a first oil assumption of 2022 or thereabouts, discounting that back on an MPV 10 basis, we're getting the valuation net to us of at least £30 million. So you combine that with our existing cash position, and we're kind of priced into the bottom end of the range. Yeah. So there is, yes, I think there's a significant upside potential. Yeah. The valuation as you go through the range of 25 up to 130 million barrels changes significantly. And I think if we were to reach, say, the mid case in Verbier, then yes, the share price is today, in today's value, is very undervalued.
And I think I have your house brokers at £10 a share on the upside. So
on an unrisked basis, but that's just Verbier.
There's so much more.
There's so much more in this area.
Before we finish, I've been able to visit your offices. They're quite small, and when you first started, you had a very small team.
Yes.
You mentioned earlier on in the interview that you obviously got somebody looking at the data. Yeah. Have you expanded? Have you got a bigger team now? Is Jersey Oil and Gas growing to accommodate all this?
So we've got a dozen people. We're technical heavy, so we've got some really good subsurface skill sets within the team. A phenomenal geologist that's been in the North Sea for 40 years.
That'd be Ron.
That's Martin.
Martin, yes.
Ron, our COO, who was a joint founder of Jersey Oil and Gas with myself. I won't blow his trumpet too much, but he's been in the industry on an international level for the best part of 40 years and is an extremely competent individual. So that sets the tone. We've just brought on a very eminent geoscientist to start doing the seismic interpretation. And we've got a facilities engineer as well in-house that is already thinking about the topside issues. Yeah. We've covered the bases. We've got a small but very competent team. We've got a dirt cheap office in Jersey. We're sharing some office space in London. So we are controlling of our G&A, quite rightly so, as you're growing. So I think we've got a decent financial structure, which is appropriate for a company of our size.
Good. We could run up to the end of our time.
Already?
20 minutes goes so quickly. Before I ask you about, Nick, because the final question will be about the vision, Andrew's vision for the next 12 to 18 months. Can you confirm that now you're spudded? We're talking about, you said something like mid-second quarter?
Yeah, mid-Q2. And I think the drilling is underway, so we'll wait.
Keep us informed.
And I'll keep you informed as soon as we've got some results.
Good. Tell us about the vision for the next 12 to 18 months before we let go of you.
And we've got probably 4 catalysts for the rest of this year. We've got obviously this appraisal well and the results of that. We've got the 3D seismic that will be delivered at the end of Q2. That will be important for planning forward. There's the licensing round and the award of that, and how that impacts Verbier and the commercial viability of Verbier. And then ultimately we'll be planning a 2020 program. So towards the end of the year, I think there could be a plan. I hope there's a plan for a lot further of drilling activity on this area. So that's the immediate catalysts.
Yeah.
I think that the company has an opportunity to grow its resource base in and around this area quite significantly over the course of the next 12 months. So that's what our main objective is, and we've got the money to do it.
Well, sounds very exciting indeed. Andrew, thank you very much for coming in.
Pleasure.
Today's guest has been Andrew Benitz, who's the CEO of Jersey Oil and Gas. My name is Malcolm Grahamwood. I've been presenting the CEO Core Finance interview, and we very much look forward to seeing you again. Bye now.